A fourth theme that emerged during the day is really the importance of zooming out from the individual. And so I kind of had set this up as, moving from the micro to the macro. Understandably, I think a lot of the attention to date has really been around how the adoption of these new technologies is going to impact individual workers, right? A lot of the discussion, for example, is about, is this going to lead to job and employee displacement? Those types of issues have really come to the forefront, and those are certainly important. What I thought was really interesting, though, is many of the presenters also kind of took the lens up a level or two to really think about, what is the impact of these technologies on teams, as well as our organizations, and even more broadly, society at large. For example, one of the presenters, Malti Young, who's in our information science and computer science division here at Cornell, he shared some research that he's done looking at, as individuals interact with algorithms and AI in kind of an interpersonal way, how does that impact their interpersonal reactions with other humans and in their teams? And it's found that, we kind of develop these patterns as we interact with a Siri or an Alexa. We're very demanding, we're very curt, not the way we usually talk to one another, yet, that can create a certain routine or pattern that then spills over to how we interact with one another. And so I think that was a really important insight to think about, what might be those kind of norms and expectations about human interaction that get shaped by how we interact with these technologies. Some of the other presenters also highlighted that it's very difficult to design these various tools in a way that really maximizes utility across these different levels. What might be good for the individual, for example, isn't always what's good for the organization or what's good for society. And one of our presenters talked about this idea of a two-sided market. I think when we go to places like Amazon, we kind of, I think, intuitively understand that. We know that the algorithms are maybe pushing certain products to us, or we see sponsored items, and we know that there's kind of an intent, so to speak, to manipulate our buying. I personally had never really thought about that in the HR context, but I think some of the presenters highlighted that sometimes the way we might set up certain algorithms to help us, for example, identify the best candidate might be good for the organization, but when we really kind of zoom out and look at that from a societal level, maybe in the aggregate, that's not creating the greatest good. So I think that really means that we need to think across these different levels as we think about these tools and really think about, what impact are they having on individual workers? What impact are they likely to have on our teams and team dynamics? What impact are they likely to have on the organization? And even thinking about, societally, what impact are they likely to have? And I think that's a tall task, obviously, but I think it's one that we need to keep working through.
Good point. And I know you study groups and teams, so I'm wondering, how do you think about technologies such as AI and how they will impact teams going forward? Do you think they'll improve them or hurt teams and collaboration?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, Beth, because I think prior to the partner meeting, I had always kind of thought about these tools as ways to really enhance teamwork and team dynamics. A good example is I've done some research recently looking at communication within teams. And one of the things that we often find is that, teams that have relatively equal levels of voice across team members tend to be the highest performing teams. And we can look at that pretty granularly in terms of, is the kind of turn taking and speaking in the team relatively consistent or equally distributed among the team. And interestingly, now there's these tools coming online that can help teams in real time monitor kind of speaking turns. And if, one or a few members are dominating the conversation, the tool will kind of prompt the team to correct that and, try to balance things out. So I'd always viewed these tools as having more of an upside than a downside. But I think some of the presenters like Malti really made me realize that there can be a dark side to some of these tools, and we really need to think about how they're going to maybe spill over and influence our interactions, or as teams, do we start relying on them too much, and maybe move away from kind of self-managing our teams ourselves? So again, I think it was a good kind of callback to some of the theme that I started out with today, which is, there's both opportunities, but there's risks. And I think we always need to have both of those sides of the coin in mind as we think about applying these tools.